we have found another Hall of Fame voter. The class of 2022 will be announced in a couple hours. We'll see if Bonds finally got in. Some of the ballots that have already been, I guess, not exposed, but have been announced. Voters have come forward and said, hey, I put my ballot in December. Here's who I voted for. Those have been tabulated, and so far, Bonds has more than the 75% needed to get enshrined, but there's a thought out there that a lot of the private anonymous ballots will go against Bonds, so he will fall just short in his last year. Will Graves, Associated Press, is one of those voters. Will, are you one of the gatekeepers who are like Ron Cook bringing up morality and character and keeping Barry Bonds out of the Hall of Fame?
No, thanks, Poni, for having me. This is my first year of voting. I voted for Bonds, I voted for Clemens, I voted for David Ortiz, and I voted for Billy Wagner. And, look, I hear Ron. Look, I have a lot of respect for Ron. I talk to people in this market. I talk to people in other markets. I talk to people that cover the game for a long time. I'm wondering, before I submitted my ballot, including the great John Parado, Rob Beer Temple in this market, and some of the folks that I know across the game, I'm wondering how many times Ron voted for Barry Bonds for MVP, which does not contain a morality clause. But that being said, the instructions don't say, it says take that into consideration. It doesn't say use that as the final arbiter. Ron is choosing to make it as the final arbiter, and that's fine. He's certainly earned the right, and I have no issue with him not voting for Bonds.
Well, I don't think it's fine, though, because it's inconsistent. We never put guys in because they had great character. The character clause only goes one way. It's used to keep out steroid users. It's never used to put guys in who are like Mother Teresa, Will.
Well, I mean, and I wrote this. I wrote a lengthy, as my boss said, too lengthy explanation on my ballot, my thought process when I submitted. I tweeted it out this morning. People are welcome to find me on Twitter at Will Graves AP and take a look at it. But you know, how many tests? How many times did Barry Bonds get suspended for PED use?
0.
How many times did Roger Clemens get suspended for PED use?
0. Instead, we invested millions of dollars in a witch hunt. Public money went to bringing those guys down, and I think there was, one charge that stuck to Bonds that was eventually thrown out of court?
I am not. My problem is, one of my many problems is, and it's a complicated issue, is that the game was not interested in policing itself. The game was interested in making
So
money.
why should you be? Why should Will Graves now have to do the dirty work of Major League Baseball, who not only turned a blind eye, but they loved when these guys were hitting home runs and making Major League Baseball money? Now it's your job to punish these guys? That doesn't seem right.
And on my end, I got here in 2011. I became a paying dues member of the BBWAA in 2012. And
congratulations on all your success, Will.
Well, I was 5 years removed from Bonds' last game, right? So I didn't cover him during his career. And now I'm in charge of being the arbiter for guys that for an industry in a game that didn't seem to be too interested in keeping these guys in check until the cow was way out of the barn. I mean, that's my problem with it, right? I mean, let
me ask you this question, Will. If you go by what Ron said, right? So does that mean he wouldn't go for Schilling because Schilling said, I want to lynch journalists, wore a shirt that said that or posted a shirt that said that, and also made a comment like, all Muslims are compared to Nazis? I mean, do we bring the character clause into effect there? How about what Omar Vizquel has been accused of doing off the field?
Two guys that are not on my ballot. Schilling asked to not be included, and I'm fine with that. And the thing about all this is, Poni, we can sit here, and there's going to be a lot of hand-wringing like there always is, and in 2 years, the modern era committee is going to put in Bonds, is going to put in Clemens, is going to put in Curt Schilling.
Really?
I mean, so
why are you so convinced of that, Will? This is the first time I've heard someone say that with such an authoritative tone.
The players the people that are voting for this are the same people that put in Harold Baines. And look, I know Harold Baines. He was from the town where my first job was, and once or twice a year.
I don't even think Harold Baines considered himself a Hall of Famer. Do you?
No, I think he's as surprised as anyone. I just think that the threshold is going to be it's going to be much easier for them to clear the bar, I think, when they get to that committee. So they might not get in today, but I think they'll get in. And to be honest with you, and I wrote this, I think they should get in. Look, the game is messy. Why is there a lockout right now, Poni? Because it's about money.
Okay.
If it was about the love of the game, these guys the tickets would be $4, and guys would be paying for $50,000 a year just so they can make their mortgage payments and their car payments, and TV rights would be, $1 million instead of $1 billion.
And
right?
that's a good point. And let me add this to that, Will. If Bonds' numbers are so tainted, why does Major League Baseball still regard him as the all-time home run king? Why?
Well, I mean, look, there's so many layers to this, but I mean, he is in the Hall of Fame already. I mean, there are exhibits that feature Barry Bonds. There are exhibits that feature Roger Clemens. We're talking about one room. So I get where if Ron and other people that don't vote for the steroid guys, if they want to protect that room, that is certainly their right. But we have to evolve our thinking.
Yeah, but don't you think they gave that up a long time ago, Will?
That this is Field of Dreams.
Well,
it's not Field of Dreams.
But don't you think they gave up protecting that room a long time ago? They put Bud Selig in. I mean, he presided all of this.
My point, like the guy that was in charge of this whole thing, while all this was going on, he gets a pass,
right?
And these guys don't. Like I gotta, what I'm looking forward to going forward is because there is a policy, and because we can look to guys like Alex Rodriguez, who I did not vote for this year, but probably will vote for next year.
Now, why is that? Now, why would you vote for Bonds and Clemens and not A-Rod? I'm interested in this.
Well, because it's Bonds and Clemens, it's their 10th time on the ballot.
Okay.
This is A-Rod's first. So for me, this is my own personal standard, at least in 2022. If you got busted and did the crime, and you paid he sat out a year, he paid his penalty, whatever, you don't get to be a first ballot guy. You do not get to be in the same like a Jeter and a Cal Ripken Jr. and a Ken Griffey. Like you don't get that honor. But I mean, A-Rod, again, his numbers are so overwhelming that I think much like Bonds, much like Clemens, he's in. Now the thing where the steroids gets murky for me is a guy like Gary Sheffield. Gary Sheffield was that dude. Gary Sheffield was a bad man for a long time. But if you look at his numbers, he crept over 500 home runs. If he doesn't do anything, are his numbers, is he 450? Is he 440? Is he 425? And in that case, do I vote for him? I'm a small hall guy. I mean, I'm not going to pack my ballot with 10 people. I'm not going to, no offense, I'm not going to put in a blank ballot because that's sort of if I could be honest, that's kind of the grandstanding crap that got us in this position in the first place. Right? So,
I thought you said you respected Ron. Now you're taking shots at him, Will?
I do, but I didn't know he had a blank ballot till 5 minutes ago. So,
do you even buy the thesis statement from Cook? We got Will Graves on, who voted for Bonds. Hall of Fame announcement tonight. This is Bonds' last crack at it from the voters. Do you buy what Ron said, his thesis point, that Barry Bonds, just this statement, Will, do you agree with it, that Barry Bonds cheated the game? Do you think that that's right or wrong?
Did he break the rules? I don't think he broke the rules because there were no rules. And is that mental gymnastics on my part to reward him?
And you cover gymnastics, so that would make sense.
That's true. I appreciate it. I appreciate the shout out. But I mean, I think it's just hard for me to reconcile that the same writers that had no problem voting for these guys for these awards year after year after year, even when these guys were at parts of their careers where there were suspicions, and yet they still kept getting voted for these awards. And now all of a sudden, 15 years later, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. And I understand the morality. I mean, look, Ron is reading the morality clause different than I read. He is using that as one of the, you have to, I'm assuming, I haven't talked to Ron about this specifically, but maybe you have to tick off every single box to get into the Hall of Fame for Ron, and that's fine. And look, if I'm a small hall guy and Ron votes for nobody, maybe he's doing it the right way, to be fair. But I also think I just think that he did not was he ever suspended? He wasn't. So then how can you say that he cheated? Who cheated? Sammy Sosa cheated. Why didn't I vote for Sosa? You know what? We can talk about the steroids. The corked bat thing really pissed me off.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
now we're getting somewhere.
Of how stupid he was. That to me speaks more to his character than anything that any sort of tablet or anything he might have gotten injected. It just says how many ways is he going to try to bend the rules?
I just think before they started testing, there was incentive to do it. I feel like there are guys like Canseco that were honest about it, who said it was widespread. So I really think it was closer to a level playing field than people like Ron think. And I think once testing really started, guys that continued to cheat actually did get a bigger leg up on everybody. So that's where I draw the line. Like, I don't think, like, do I think that Bonds and Clemens are in this, nefarious, sinister minority? No. Will, in your business, if there was a drug that writers could take that wasn't tested, that gave you a story that could go out before deadline, and you didn't have to stress about writing whatsoever, and it was great, and it went in before deadline, I think 90% of people in your business would take it if they knew they weren't going to get in trouble for it.
I think that's called free and free life, right?
I just think, like, who are some of these writers that think that they have the moral high ground to, like, govern something like this? And I know what you said about how Bonds is there's still artifacts in the Hall of Fame, but we know that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing as having a plaque that has your name and face on it that says, here is what you accomplished within baseball. I don't like when people say, well, Clemens is already in the Hall of Fame. It's not the same.
There's nothing stopping the Hall from putting in, like, that, adding a sentence in their plaques about, the legacy of his career and the complications of it. I mean, there's nothing. This is, and I brought this up too. So, Poni, like, did Ron also mention that when you get your link from the Hall of Fame, and it links, like, it gives you a little player resumes, you click through and you go through all of it. How many did anywhere in those links provided by the Hall of Fame did anything mention anything about steroids? Even under a player like Alex Rodriguez, who was suspended
I don't know, you tell us.
for an entire season.
You tell us.
It was not included in their resumes. But Baseball Hall of Fame is saying, hey, but do your own research, which I'm fine. And look, my research brought me around on Billy Wagner. I did not intend to vote for Billy Wagner. And after doing
how about Manfred said, and now he's the commissioner of baseball. He's not the Hall of Fame. How about Manfred said, hey, if I was voting, I wouldn't pay attention to that survey that said David Ortiz tested positive. How about that? I mean, that's from the commissioner.
Right. I mean, I think we just got to get off our high horse and deal with the real world.
Exactly.
I mean, baseball is a complicated sport. It is not. Look, I'm the president of my kids' Little League. By the way, people, sign up for Monroeville Baseball. We'll take it. We need numbers. But I mean, look, if you sat in the stands or a dugout at a Little League game and watched grown people and the way they comport themselves sometimes, and we're sitting here going to get mad at Barry Bonds, for a competitive human being, for doing something that was, by the way, not technically against the rules. Come on, man.
I mean, it was on the books. They made steroids, I think, illegal in 1991, but they didn't do anything to stop it. So I don't know. Anyways, Will, I'm very proud of you, and congratulations for doing the right thing and voting yes, checking the box yes on Barry Bonds.
And did not break any FCC violations this time.
That's right.
So
no F-bombs this time, Donnie. All right, see you, Will. Will Graves, AP, Baseball Hall of Fame voter.